Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, Chapter 4, Part 2 of Fusus al-Hikam. In the previous video, I gave you a little bit more than an overview of Chapter 4. Today, we're going to be selectively drilling into some parts. And considering today's discussion, we need to remember Chapter 3, where he talked about the wisdom of Noah. Ibn Arabi said, Ibn Arabi was talking about the transcendence approach that Noah took, and he was criticizing that. And this is one of the unique instances in Islamic tradition that a scholar goes so far as to criticize a prophet. Doesn't usually happen. So what is happening in Chapter 3, Ibn Arabi illustrates the transcendental, intellectual approach of Noah to God in relation to his people, who had not a transcendental understanding, but a more of an anthropomorphic understanding. And Ibn Arabi says that is precisely the problem. Anthropomorphic capacity of understanding of his people, his transcendental approach, his intellectual approach, these cannot be put together. He also told us that every prophet should bring the message and invite people in accordance with their level of understanding and with their level of knowledge. So here again, we're going to be talking about transcendence and immanence, or similarity. Transcendence of God in relation to the world and similarity of God to the creation through the lens of Enoch, Idris. If you remember, the chapter's name was al-Hikam al-Quddusiyya, that is the holy wisdom of Idris. Where Ibn Arabi focused on just one word, ʿuluww, highness, elevation, eminence. Idris symbolizes divine knowledge, specifically concerning the realities free from corporeality. In other words, Idris symbolizes transcendence, where tashbih, or similarity, or God's immanence in the world, relates to humans' anthropomorphic understanding of God, or humans receiving knowledge of God through forms, through the world of imagination, where they do understand God, they gain the knowledge of God, but through forms, through symbols. In Chapter 4, per the framework Ibn Arabi is presenting, human beings will always have an anthropomorphic understanding of God as long as they are embodied materially. So here in this chapter, Ibn Arabi discusses the relationship between transcendence and similarity of God to creation through the word ʿuluww, highness, eminence. ʿuluww, or highness, represents God's transcendence, because if you remember from the previous chapter, Ibn Arabi said God's highness relates to his essence. It's an essential elevation, highness, not that of the place, nor that of status, because then the comparison comes in, like higher than what. Now, building on this, Ibn Arabi gives his formula, his most important and influential help to humankind, Islamic scholars specifically in this case, that understanding God can be attained neither by following God's immanence, look what happens to Noah, nor completely by tashbih, that is considering God anthropomorphically, or at least through creation similarities. Both would make you err, both would give you a limited picture. The perfect combination is bouncing between transcendence and immanence, and that is a wonderful, wonderful framework. Others have done this, but they have not been doing it as systematically as insistingly as Ibn Arabi does. So, considering God's essence, we say God is transcendent. Considering his presence in the world, his emanation in the world, we say God is present. And there is a famous hadith saying that if you were to lower a rope, it will fall on God. Ibn Arabi says, look, this is referring to the immanent aspect of God, the similarity of God to the creation. Idris's high station for Ibn Arabi mirrors that of divine essence. It is not in that level, but it mirrors it. Yet we also have from Ibn Arabi that the human beings are created in God's image. Then the dilemma rises. If humans are created in God's image, then they should be understanding God based on that image alone. But no, says Ibn Arabi, although we are created in God's image, that will give you a partial picture. You need to go beyond. You need to transcend this limited aspect to understand God fully. You need to go beyond being limited to God's image mentality. Again, pure transcendence or holding pure immanence or similarity of God would limit God. Ibn Arabi says that even transcendence itself is a limiting category. So the perfect combination is saying that God is simultaneously, this is the important and apparently paradoxical statement, that God is both transcendent and immanent in the world. That would give you the best formulation, says Ibn Arabi. Then if you remember from the previous video, there were two kinds of highness, ʿuluww, one of space, then the other one is status. And again, God says, Ibn Arabi says that God's elevation is that of the essence. And concerning the tradition, Quran and Hadith, we are told that God was and there was nothing with him, which points to, according to Ibn Arabi, to the non-relational absolute aspect of the essence. Then in what follows, Ibn Arabi strives to tell us that one and many are not actually opposites, they are relational. That is, the multiplicity is relational. And importantly, he extends this into created beings, saying that, look, there is one reality in the world, and that is God, the real. But the multiplicity that you see, the beings that you see are the multiplicity of beings, is relational, not essential. If you remember from the previous video, Ibn Arabi said, just to illustrate the relationship between unity and multiplicity, he gave the example of number 1. He said that all numbers are basically made up of 1 and they're created of 1. But he's telling us that the number 1 is not counted amongst them when we are talking about the combinations, say number 10. We are not literally counting 1 in there, but the reality is there. From there, he says, look, the similar case goes with the Arabic word alif, which symbolizes divine unity. Every word, all those multiplicities, carry the soul of alif in it. And then analogously, he moves on to saying all beings are also like this. The one single being, that is absolute existence, runs through, permeates through all beings without neither being reduced to them nor being counted amongst them. Another important gift that Ibn Arabi gives us is that every being is a word. If you remember from our video on divine breath and the breath of the All-Merciful, and each being a word in that breath, when God says be, that utterance, that word creates each being, brings each being into existence in that substrate, in that breath. So for Ibn Arabi, every being is a word. And he here emphasizes that it is wrong to consider Jesus as just the word of God. It's not just Jesus, it's every being in the world that is a word of God. Then for Ibn Arabi, if you remove number 1, you would remove all, you will basically destroy all numbers. They would all collapse. And if you were to remove that one reality, all the multiplicity through which that reality runs, would basically not exist. Then Ibn Arabi moved on from numbers to illustrating the same point about multiplicity and unity through nature, saying that the multiplicity in the nature does not negate the oneness of nature. He compared the relationship of unity and multiplicity to the relation between the nature's unity and its elements, air, dirt, fire, and all these multiplicities. Everything other than God is composite. God is simple. Everything other than God is formed through a relational attraction of parts. But importantly, says Ibn Arabi, when those parts come together, they form something that is beyond those parts. In other words, what is formed is not just a combination of parts. When they get together, something, some reality, a being, considering nature, is created that is, you cannot say, okay, let's add this, then add this, then add that, then you have a nature. It doesn't work like that. It's not just a mere combination of numbers, a mere combination of elements. Composition is the process of harmony, not conflict. Every composite gains an essence that is not present in particular elements. The total embodies a spiritual reality that the individual parts lack, mirroring, for Ibn Arabi, the animation of Adam. When he told us in the first chapter that Adam encompasses all realities in the world. It's not that if you put together all those realities in the world, you would, voila, come up with the reality of the perfect man. It doesn't work like that. That reality that is formed by that all-comprehensiveness is a different kind of reality than a mere combination of parts. So through such examples, Ibn Arabi tries to show us that unity and multiplicity are not actually and strictly contradictory. They are complementary. They are necessary. Then, if you remember, Ibn Arabi mentions the theory of divine names, first put forth by Ibn Qasi, but he extends it, he develops it. The theory was basically this: every name is similar to other names concerning the fact that they point to the same essence, but they differ in the particular attribute of the essence they are referring to. The name Ar-Rahman, it is different from Al-Ghaffar, that is the all-compassionate, is different from forgiver in the particular angle they are focusing. In terms of attribute, one goes to compassion, the other one goes to forgiving, but both of them point to the same essence. So in that aspect, they are the same, but in particularity, they are different. And here the Quranic verse comes into play. Call upon Allah or call upon the compassionate. Whichever you call upon, to him belongs the most beautiful names. That second part is basically saying that whatever name you attribute, they're referring to the same essence. Ibn Arabi extends this into being, saying that all relations in existence in the world of multiplicity are like the multiplicity of divine names. Forms differ, realities go back to the same one single reality. The cosmos is a mirror in which God contemplates his names. We know this from chapter 1. And the human being, the perfect man's reality, is the mirror, the most comprehensive mirror, in which God's knowledge, self-knowledge, is revealed to himself. And God is the mirror, we have from previous chapters, in which human contemplates their reality. So two mirrors, mirror and mirror, a dynamic relationship. And since the human contains all the realities in the cosmos, God, contemplating himself upon the mirror of the perfect man, he's contemplating the entirety of the created beings. And human being, knowing him or herself, knows the entire cosmos, because he, the perfect man, encompasses the realities, knows all the realities in the cosmos. Now, several conclusions emerge from this chapter. Idris's wisdom deepens the exploration of transcendence by likening it to highness, direction, and value, showing that tanzih, transcendence, and tashbih, eminence, must coexist in balance. 2. True divine highness is not special but essential. indicating God's inherent exaltedness. 3. Unity and multiplicity, being and non-being are complementary rather than opposites. All existence depends on the sustaining one. 4. Composition in creation demonstrates that the many are unified through synthesis, not contradiction. 5. Ibn Arabi's adaptation of Ibn Qasi's theory universalizes divine naming. Every relation in being mirrors divine relations. He goes beyond divine names. He takes that relationship into that interconnected relationship into different beings in the cosmos. And 6, the human as a mirror of divine bridges knowledge of self, cosmos, and God, culminating to Idris's chapter's vision of transcendence and immanence's harmony. Thank you very much for watching.